listening to Pop This, the podcast where three women talk about pop culture. Here are your hosts, Lisa Christiansen, Andrea Gin, and Andrea Warner.
All right, so what would happen if I propositioned both of you with, hey, why don't we meet up downtown? Because as people know, we are recording our podcast all from our respective homes. And it strikes me as funny that we actually used to go out and do this in a different place.
Yeah, in a real
time.
studio.
In a real studio, yeah.
Yeah, I know. Now, whenever I'm required to leave my house and thinking about going to a movie, going out for dinner or something, I just add in the hours it's going to take me to get to whatever location it is. And then, if it's a 7 p.m. movie and it takes you, say, 30, 40 minutes to get there and 30, 40 minutes to get home, it's when am I supposed to have dinner? Am I supposed to eat at 10?
What am I, European? Yeah.
Yeah. It just seems like so much trouble.
I had an actual out of the house meeting today, and I had to go to Yaletown, which is not far from my home, to be honest, but it's a 15-minute trip down there, and then it's 15 minutes back. So that adds a half an hour to your 1 hour meeting with somebody. And then before that, I had to pick out an outfit. I hadn't put on leave the house clothes in 2 weeks other than grocery store outfits. I didn't have a coffee shop Toronto client outfit ready to go. So that took up a whole bunch of time. And then suddenly it was end of the day and I hadn't gotten anything accomplished, except I did manage to make it downtown.
I know too, because when you go out to something now and you come home, it just feels oh, I'm so tired. I need a rest. I can't.
I did take a nap as soon as I got it.
I don't know if it's a holdover. I think I was always a homebody, but I think since the pandemic, just the whole idea, if I'm going out anywhere, I'm so I'll need a shower. Is that what we're saying here? Because I just want to know if this is an activity that requires me to bathe and get dressed and
be presentable.
And I got so used to deciding when I wanted to go out and just didn't. I just decided in the end. And I mean, there was a good reason. For a time there, we were all very afraid to go out. But now I'm just not wanting to go out. But then I watched The Last of Us and I'm like, maybe I should get out. I don't know what's coming. Maybe I should be enjoying going out more often. I don't know.
I know.
So I'm not afraid anymore. I'm just disinterested. I just
what do you
don't
got
know
out there that's better than in here?
Yeah, exactly. I've got I'll have a little single malt. I've got whatever I want to watch on whatever platform, or I've got a book. I'm good. I guess I've also aged more than 3 years in those 3 years. Exactly. There's the food. Anything I want can be brought to me or found to be brought to me. So why bother?
Yeah. Why bother? That's our new motto.
We're assuming that you're listening to this podcast somewhere comfortable. That's what we're going to assume.
Yes.
You're wearing stretchy clothes. You've got snacks.
Yeah. You're cozy.
Well, I've got stretchy sweatpants on, but I've got a button up here just so I would be presentable to both of you. But down below there, it's a sweatpants and slippers.
I'm definitely in the Lululemon / Old Navy workout gear combo.
Oh, the high and low, or is it just medium?
Yeah, I like to do high and low. I like to mix it up. So if I'm going to wear technical gear, I want some really cheap stuff, and then I've got my more expensive brand name, I guess you could say. And the logos look almost identical because, trademark infringement. So no one really knows unless you get within a foot or two of me. And as I've already pointed out, no one's getting within a foot or two of me because I'm at home.
Yeah. This is as close as you want to be to people as you are to us right now.
Exactly. And I love it. It's beautiful spending time with you.
Remember when we did that?
But so, kind of as a result of spending so much time at home, I finally broke down and started watching stuff on TikTok. And I
Oh.
know, Lisa, you're like more of a veteran of TikTok and understand it more than I do. But what drew me in was these, you know how I guess it's a trend where people make like outrageous food recipes
Mm-hmm.
and it goes like viral on TikTok. And you're just like, most of you is like, they're just doing this as a stunt or whatever. But then they eat it at the end and you're like, did they really eat that? Is this a serious thing? I can't tell. And so, yeah, I was going to ask you, Lisa, like, are these like food videos, are we supposed to just assume they're all stunts for TikTok?
Well, I think you can. I feel like I can tell because I've made a couple of them. Of the
You've drenched your
I
counters in tomato sauce and had people dip tortilla chips in it and stuff.
I made the butter board.
Yeah, well, I mean, that doesn't look outrageous. It's the stuff where like, you know, they put like like 2 loaves of cheese on top of each other,
Yeah.
and then pasta shells, and then pour in milk, and then put like the whole thing, just pop it in the oven, just like that.
Have you seen the woman
Cheetos or something?
There's a woman who's made, like, I guess, a mild online career, and all she does is make fun of these videos. So she starts everyone by saying, "Everybody's so creative," and then she shows it.
Yes,
She is the best. I love her. That has been my only TikTok reference, other than stuff I see through Reddit, because I've had to leave Twitter, so now I'm addicted to Reddit. I don't know if that's a good or bad thing, but at least I'm not dealing with Twitter anymore.
Well, I'm on Instagram Reels too.
And how's that going?
There's a bit of overlap.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, I'm fine. I can quit whenever I want.
But so just to tie this all into the movie we're talking about today, and it's a little bit of a past reference, but Sofia Coppola's daughter recently went viral on TikTok with a video of, I guess, what would you say it's about? It's about her preparing to make pasta.
Vodka pasta. Yeah, it's got everything
pasta.
When you say it. It's got it has drama and it has cooking.
And it's
an amazing little thing.
It's phenomenal. It's been taken down, but it is still findable. And she even says her parents are going to make her take this down because she's not allowed to have social media because she'd be accused of being a nepotism baby. And she opens it by saying that she's in trouble and she's grounded. This is why she's doing it, because she tried to use her dad's credit card to rent a helicopter to go have dinner with her friend in a neighboring state. And it's the best thing that any member of the Coppola family has ever created. And that's including Nicolas Cage and all the
foreshadowing
Schwartzmans.
for this episode here today.
Indeed. It is the best thing that I've ever seen come out of a Coppola, and even more so than The Godfather 1 and 2. It's brilliant.
Like, here's the thing though, like watching it, I found her very charming and I liked her. And I was like, at the end of it, I was like, girl, you're my hero. That's great. That's amazing. Like usually when I watch things like this, I'm like, oh, these spoiled, rich kids, this is just disgusting or whatever. But when I watched that one, I was like, you know what? She's authentic. She's not being authentic to herself. This isn't being done as like a stunt for TikTok or whatever. It's she's just doing a video. And I don't know. I just found something like, it's remarkable. It's a great piece of art. It's funny. It's like Lisa says, got a little bit of everything. But what I found to be most notable is that like I didn't not like her at the end of it.
Should we be worried about her, that her parents don't spend any time with her? That seemed rather worrisome.
Is it sort of like Kellyanne Conway's daughter, when the entire internet got really worried for her before she was on American Idol or The Voice or whichever show she did, where she was going against her parents and then President Trump, and everybody was like, "Oh, careful, girl, they're gonna come for you." And her mom was like locking her in her bedroom and stuff, and it was all social media'd up to the hilt. I mean, I don't know if we have to worry about is it Romy? Is it pronounced Romy Coppola?
Romy Mars.
Yeah, Romy Mars.
Yeah.
Romy Coppola Mars. Yes. Good for, and at least now we've got a third name, because before it was all we had was the Shires, and we have a fourth name because it was Coppola's and Shires and Schwartzmans, and now we've got the Mars family.
We had Cage too.
But that's right, we have a Cage, but Cage is a fake name. It's not his real name.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh, really?
No, I didn't know that.
He made that up so people wouldn't think that he was a nepotism baby, maybe because
This is a very long-standing problem. Yeah.
Well, I mean, like her babysitter's boyfriend seemed like, he seemed like okay replacement parent.
Somebody apparently said he has a PhD in philosophy. That was a little extra bonus I saw.
I mean, that's in there as well.
Does.
It's amazing. I mean, we strike on so many, like International Women's Month is mentioned, and this is in what a span of maybe a minute and a half. It is brilliant work, and it. As a segue, it really does. I think it's a better demonstration of modern alienation than maybe her mother's biggest work of all time.
Wow. Okay, here we go.
You just wow, that was a perfect segue. Thank you.
I feel that Andrea's spirit was right behind me, whispering that in my ear from wherever she might be in Europe right now.
So I'm Andrea Gin.
I'm Lisa Christiansen.
I'm Stephen Schelling.
And you're listening to Pop This. Minus Andrea Warner, who is on a European vacation right now.
Gallivanting.
Gallivanting. We are seeing the photos every day. It's looked at like a charmed trip.
It is envy.
Look up her
inspiring.
Look up her Instagram, Miss Andrea Warner, if you want to see her vacay pics, because they're quite enviable.
And she texted in the middle of work yesterday. I get a text saying, "Oh my God, I just saw Rob Delaney walking down the street on his phone."
No! She's having the best vacation. I just got back from Paris and all I got was riots. That's not fair.
But I mean, riots are so common in Paris, Stephen. You must experience it.
They're
all the
very
time
common, but you don't always
so
get the fire with them. You get riots or fires. You don't always get both together. And so that's what's made. And there's all this garbage everywhere that's easily lit. So it's like a tinderbox. And now that it's warming up, the city's not smelling great. But I don't work for Paris tourism, luckily. So
I remember the one time I went to Paris, it was there were protests going on. I didn't really know what was happening, but all of a sudden I was like having a coffee. I look out the window and there are like riot police in the streets carrying machine guns.
Well, regular police carry machine guns there. It's totally normal. Like when you get off the plane at the airport, there's a guy with a machine gun.
I was so shocked.
Now it's nothing like Tokyo.
You got the full Parisian experience, so there you are.
It's nothing like Tokyo. Notice how we're just not talking about our film. What does that say? What does that say about our film?
Okay, so everybody, we're talking about Lost in Translation because it's the 20th anniversary of this movie this year, if you can believe that. I guess I can. And our guest is Stephen Schelling, many-time guest. We often subject you to some of our lesser offerings. This time you kind of chose from a list. So you subjected yourself
this is all
to
me.
Lost in Translation.
This is all me.
Lisa, do you want to read Stephen's bio?
I do want to read Stephen's bio. Yes, I do. Stephen Schelling. Stephen is an award-winning writer, editor, and fashion stylist, and a highly sought-after on-air expert for radio and television broadcasters in the areas of fashion, lifestyle, and pop culture. Stephen has appeared as a guest host on Pop This many times, including our episodes on Funny Girl, Dangerous Liaisons, and Be Still My Heart, Xanadu. He is a devoted human parent to the cutest beagle in the world and is always on the hunt for the world's best Negroni. Stephen, welcome.
Thank you. It's lovely to be back.
It's so lovely
where
to have
are you with your Negroni hunt?
I'm always hunting. I found a really good one in Paris, oddly enough, which is not the place you would usually want to order one. Yeah, but I mean, if you go to the Ambassador bar at the Hotel de Crillon, they're going to make a good one. It's going to cost you a month's rent, even Vancouver level rent, because it's the Hotel de Crillon. But you can sit there, sip a Negroni, and watch the incipient protest movement begin. It was the first night of the riots right in front of the hotel, and it was lovely with a Negroni.
Wow, what a backdrop.
Yeah, it was great. It was champagne socialism, me, meets socialism in the streets. And it was fun.
Well, I'm glad you're self-aware.
Yes.
So.
Well, yeah.
So I can tackle the background
Mhm.
and synopsis. It's kind of one thing. Lost in Translation is a 2003 romantic comedy drama film written and directed by Sofia Coppola. Bill Murray stars as Bob Harris, a fading American movie star who is having a midlife crisis when he travels to Tokyo to promote Suntory whiskey. There, he befriends another estranged American named Charlotte, a young woman and recent college graduate played by Scarlett Johansson. Giovanni Ribisi and Anna Faris also feature. The film explores the themes of alienation and disconnection against a backdrop of cultural displacement in Japan. Further analysis by critics and scholars has focused on the film's defiance of mainstream narrative conventions and its atypical depiction of romance. The movie premiered to major critical and commercial success. Critics praised the performances of Murray and Johansson, as well as the writing and direction of Coppola. Minor criticism was given to the film's depiction of Japan. At the 76th Academy Awards, Lost in Translation won Coppola Best Original Screenplay, and the film was also nominated for Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Actor for Murray. Other accolades won include 3 Golden Globe Awards and 3 British Academy Film Awards, and that's from Wikipedia. So I didn't maybe quite know until doing research on this that it was such a huge commercial success. Like it made over like $100 million on like a very small budget. So,
And Shawn Mendes did kind of his video. He did like Lost in Japan. He did almost like note for note of the copied the movie.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, no, it's almost exactly. It's really charming. It's a beautiful song too. We can put that in the show notes then.
Yeah, I'll link to that. So the interesting thing about Stephen picking this movie is that you had not ever seen it before.
That is so surprising to me.
It was surprising to me as well. And then when it came up, it's one of those things that's on your, you have that list. Everyone's got their list, right? And there's certain things that are on your list that you're just like, yeah, I'll get to it. And so 20 years later, it showed up on your list. And I was like, okay, now's the time to get to it. So I was like, yeah, let's do this. And I'm glad I did, because it's a very solid film. It's solid. And I'm glad that I now have this cultural touchstone that I only knew of. I'd seen snippets or I'd heard, at the time, especially in 2003, the main thing I remember hearing was, wow, it's a movie with a man and a woman, and they don't, no, spoiler alert, 20 years later, but nothing happens sexually between them. And I was like, okay, cool. But it never really struck me. And then I was watching it this time, and even though I knew it wasn't going to happen, there were moments where I'm like, oh, maybe this is a different cut because this looks like something's about to happen. And it never really does. And it was really interesting. I knew the outcome, but I still was like, there were these little deeks, and I would be like, oh, is Bill Murray going to try? And no, he wouldn't. And then I'm like, oh, he just sort of tried, but nothing comes of it. It was interesting to watch on that level.
Yeah. Yeah, because I don't think, I didn't even, the first time I watched it, I never even thought about Scarlett Johansson being 17 years old.
No, neither did I. No.
And Bill Murray being 52. I find that a little shocking now to think about. I think the character is supposed to be like a recent college grad, so maybe the character is like early 20s, but it's still a huge age gap, and it's a little bit, thinking about that now in 2023, I found that a little uncomfortable to grapple with as I was watching the movie.
Yeah. Still, I will admit to being quite obsessed with this movie. I've seen it. Even though I watched it last night, I've seen it so many times. I've probably seen it 10 times.
And
I'm not
what?
Kidding.
Really?
And you say you're obsessed with it. What is it that it gives you? Why do you want to watch it that 21st time?
The feeling I get is like I've gone away somewhere, and weirdly, I don't like homesickness. I can't imagine there's anyone who would say, "Oh, I love being homesick. What a great feeling." But something about that homesickness part makes me think I'm traveling, and I just love the atmosphere she created. I love Scarlett Johansson's wardrobe. I love the music. I think the music in particular is great. I love I love the friendship that's created. I love their one wild night out that ends in karaoke. I don't know. I just feel that it really is a complete movie that um I know there's some movies that you like for the story, or maybe it's like you're saying, oh, I want to watch an Ingmar Bergman film because he's such a tremendously great filmmaker or something. But I just love the feeling, the atmosphere I get from watching this movie.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to rain on your parade, and I appreciate everything you said, and I understand it. Like, the Sofia Coppola is a brilliant, like, visual filmmaker. Like, all of the scenes are like so iconic, like the look of the film is so iconic and stuff. When I saw it in 2003, I was one of the few people that was just like,
Oh,
it's okay. And it was just so hard to be that person in 2003 because it was like the biggest movie and everybody just loved it. And it was such a critical hit and everything. But I don't know if I quite knew or understood why I didn't like it. And watching it now, I feel like the way that Asians are portrayed in the movie
fair.
makes me feel very like othered while watching the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that, like Bill Murray at the time, like in 2003, he had just done like Rushmore, like he was becoming like an indie darling, and people thought he was, just like so cool and so charming. And but when I watch his performance now, it's just like the comedy there's so many cringe moments for me where he's like making fun of Japanese accents, where he's like, when they're at the sushi place and he's talking about eating her, like making a black toe joke, like that, and them eating it. Like there's just, it just doesn't, like, it just, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
From like the meet cute in the elevator, even, it's just like, when you think about it, it's like two white people walk into an elevator filled with Asian people and they immediately like make eye contact and decide they're gonna be friends. Is that, like, why is that? Why is that a thing? Like, is that what,
I didn't see what I saw was two people finding each other that were completely lost. Sorry to be so on the nose with the title there, but that they were drawn together for big reasons, that they both, they couldn't sleep at night. They were up in the bar at night.
One of those Japanese citizens could have been lost in that elevator. They don't know. But there's just like zero chance that you would make that character would make eye contact with any of the Japanese characters or, people in that elevator to find out. Mm-hmm. And that just feels, I don't know. It doesn't feel good.
Yeah, no, I understand that.
Could it be, and maybe I'm either not giving Sofia Coppola enough credit or I'm giving her way too much credit, but there's that scene later on where Anna Faris is giving her press conference about her action movie in the off the bar, and she's talking about working with Keanu Reeves and how they have so much in common because they both like sushi and karate, and everybody's like ha ha ha. But it's that same idea of, Bill Murray and Scarlett Johansson have nothing in common except for this weird situation they've been put in, much like Keanu and Anna Faris have nothing in common. Or sorry, it was yoga. Sorry, it was yoga and karate that they like, or something ridiculous like that. And maybe, I felt uncomfortable from one of the early scenes where Scarlett Johansson goes into the arcade and everybody's playing arcade games, and already knowing that this movie is supposed to ostensibly be about dislocation and feelings of being solitude and being off to the side, and then watching all these people interact with machines, and I was like, is she hitting us over the head with this, or is this organic? Is this really how an arcade would be in Tokyo? And I kept asking myself that over and over, which I don't necessarily do with movies that I watch. I kept taking myself out of it and going, is this really Tokyo, or is this like a set piece of Tokyo? And these people who are living their lives in this set piece aren't real people. Am I watching The Truman Show with Scarlett Johansson? Was basically
Mhm.
what I was asking myself.
Right.
Was Sofia Coppola pressing all the buttons? And then when I did a little bit of research on my phone while watching it, because that's the new way of doing things, I can't just do one thing at a time. And then I found out it's supposedly a semi-autobiographical. And then I kind of went, oh, this makes so much more sense. Daddy, her father, probably dragged her to Tokyo at some point when she was, coming of age, and she met some other famous actor there, and something like this could have possibly happened. And I was like, okay, then if I look at it from that standpoint, then everything around her was just a set piece. So she was just telling her story. And I think for some odd reason, it made me feel better about all the objectification going around, seeing as she was already objectifying herself. And then I thought I was thinking too much, and I stopped.
You know what I like to think about when I watch it, actually, is that apparently, I think that the story is, correct me if I'm wrong, Andrea, that she was married to Spike Jonze at the time.
Yeah.
And
Oh, so Spike Jonze is
this
Giovanni Ribisi.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And apparently that's Cameron Diaz, who was Anna Faris.
Huh.
This is, and
Oh, I didn't know that.
that's what I'd read somewhere.
I
don't
could
know.
see that, having met Cameron Diaz and done a junket where I interviewed her. I could totally see that now. Like, Anna Faris was doing a sort of Cameron Diaz, because Cameron Diaz, when she walks into a room, is extremely, when she's on a junket at least, extremely accessible and really nice and open and sweet. So
Yeah, I mean, and Anna Faris was completely sweet. I mean, there's no doubt about it. But what I do find funny about this movie is that we do hear Phoenix played in it.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
I mean, the soundtrack is killer.
Yeah, so they play, so Phoenix and her husband is the lead singer. So even at making this movie, when she was married to someone else, she was thinking about somebody else.
But so I read that some people on Reddit were saying like their perspective has changed in watching the movie in 2003. Like they were young people in their 20s and kind of saw it from Scarlett Johansson's perspective of being this like, wide-eyed person just observing Japan. And they got, well, like Lisa was talking about, that feeling of, like travel and how wonderful it can be, and to see like it opens your eyes to something like that might otherwise be mundane. For some reason while you're traveling, like things seem special. But now when they watch it in their middle ages, they more see it from like Bill Murray's perspective and see it as like he's just like a man in midlife crisis, and he's like a sad
man,
like pathetic man. Yeah,
it's true.
He's
you know
like,
what? I never remembered. Like I said, I've seen it so many times, and I hadn't remembered the scene where he's phoning his wife and he's like, "I want to get healthy. No more pasta." And then here she's on the other end. What are you even talking about? And suddenly for him, everything's crystallized. You just don't understand. I love that about travel too. I love that you can have these epiphanies about your life back at home because you're not in it right now.
I also like the lines right after that where he goes, "We should be eating like Japanese food. It's all healthy."
Yeah.
And she goes, "Well, you could also just stay there and eat it every day." And I was like, yes, that is the other thing I found. I liked Bill Murray's character not having been able to see it in my early 20s, I guess, or early 30s. I tried to make myself younger there for a second, but I liked what I liked about Bill Murray, at least most of the time, was all the physical jokes he did for the most part in the beginning were jokes on himself. The shower head was a joke on himself. The elliptical machine in the gym was hilarious because I've had that problem. If you ever try to use a hotel gym, a lot of the time the machine aren't calibrated like the ones you're used to. So weird stuff can happen. And I thought that was really good.
Mm-hmm.
And the little razor when he's just kind of like, what am I supposed to do with this? But then I found when he interacted with actual people around him, the joke was on them. And I didn't like that as much. It was, but when he put his comedy, and he has incredible comedy chops, when he put it onto himself, I was laughing and laughing with him. And then when he was like, there was that scene with the person when she's getting her toe looked at, they're in the emergency room, and he's carrying on a vague conversation sort of trying with someone who's there who might not be all there, and the two women were laughing, sitting behind them and laughing at this interaction. And I found that really painful to watch, because he was sort of pulling somebody along into his game that didn't necessarily know what was going on. And I know it wasn't cinema verite, and I know it wasn't reality TV, and that was an actor, but I just felt really uncomfortable, sort of like in a Farrelly Brothers comedy. I always feel uncomfortable in those, because the comedy always seems to be directed at insulting the person across from you. And I just, I didn't enjoy that part. I enjoyed the parts where they were making fun of themselves. I thought that those were funny.
Yeah. Well, I mean, another shift in perspective for me was like, watching the movie the first time, I thought like, you know, like, oh, these characters are so like they're cool. Like Scarlett Johansson's so cool, and Bill Murray's like so funny, and like we're supposed to think of these characters as likable, and they're like heroes of the film. And then watching it now, I kind of like see more that like these are just like obnoxious, rich American tourists.
She says I'm mean. Remember when she says that to him? I'm a mean person.
Yeah. And it's just like these are not likable people.
No, they're really not.
Yeah.
It was interesting to watch it for the first time and just be like, I don't like anybody here. Like I was laughing with Bill Murray in the beginning, and then there's that horribly weird scene when they send a sex worker to his room, and they make, you know, the obvious accent joke, and then she's flailing around with more accent. It's just a horrible scene, and I don't know why it's even there, but it wasn't funny. And I just sort of was watching it going, okay, his character's a jerk. Fine. He's an actor, over the hill actor. He's supposed to, I guess, be a jerk. And then is it just before or after that, Scarlett Johansson's character is unnecessarily mean to someone too, for a really weird reason. Like Anna Faris's character uses a pseudonym in the hotel, and her pseudonym is a man's name, a famous author's name. And she's like, ha ha, like, what an idiot. And Giovanni Ribisi goes like, well, you know, not everybody went to Harvard. You need to get over yourself. And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Who cares what her pseudonym is? I mean, what Julia Roberts movie was it where she always uses a Disney princess? I can't remember which one. There've been so many, but it doesn't.
Notting Hill.
Yeah, and yes, that's right. And so she's always got a Disney name. Who cares what your pseudonym is if it's, and it was Evelyn Waugh, if I'm not mistaken. She's like, well, Evelyn Waugh was a man. Ha ha. It's like, yeah, okay. So, where's the, and I didn't understand where that was coming from.
One thing that we know is both of them will be divorced within the year.
Yes. Or yes, shortly.
I don't know if they'll get in touch with each other, but we know that that's coming.
Absolutely. It was also weird because I didn't expect Giovanni Ribisi to be right there first, because I think he's the first person you see just about, other than Bill Murray. It's Giovanni Ribisi, and I just went Scientology and shut down for a second, and then I was like, waiting for things to start happening, because I didn't understand why he was there at first, and I forgot how good of an actor he was, because I just don't follow him anymore.
He's always Phoebe's little brother to me.
That's true.
No matter what he'll do in his life.
And the mom from that 70s show is always going to be his baby mama.
His wife.
His wife, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. That storyline for Friends is like flooding back to me now. That's amazing. Yeah.
How many times a day do we have a Celine Dion? It's all coming back to me now moment.
Oh, Celine. Poor thing.
Oh.
But I mean, I did sort of the parts that I enjoyed, and what I got out of the movie is that feeling of traveling alone and sitting in a hotel bar alone and kind of like not knowing anybody or not having anywhere to go, and sort of just that melancholy you can feel when you're by yourself and traveling.
That's what I mean. It's a movie to me that's has such an atmosphere to it. It just has such a point of view and such a look and such a feel. Like I say, even all the details I found, like even the t-shirt he wears, and she says, you're having a midlife crisis, and then he puts it on inside out. Like there's so many of those little things that happen that I think that's what I like about her as a filmmaker in general, is that attention to those really small details.
Yeah. There's so many, there's so many great things about her filmmaking. I just wish she was a little bit more, because like she's received criticism for focusing her movies on, white characters and like in The Beguiled, writing out like the black character.
Yeah, that's pretty scandalous.
Yeah, and so I just wish she would kind of be more reflective and be on a journey of learning about, this is what I did in the past, but I can make more movies in the future that are like have different points of view in it, or you know what I mean? I wish she would go on that journey a little bit because she's so talented. Like she deserves all the accolades that she has for the writing and for, her visuals and for her style and everything like that. It's just the storytelling to me. I can't relate to it. Most of her.
No,
movies.
I mean, I didn't. That's an interesting point too, because I didn't really relate to these characters at all. Like, I really didn't, but I still liked hanging out with them. I don't know, like maybe I'd like to hang out in a bar with the two of them and have them be really mean and be really mean with them. I don't think that'd be terrible.
Have either of you ever done that at a hotel? Like just gone downstairs to the bar and had a drink by yourself and then just started hanging out with people?
Yeah.
Yes.
Especially when I would do junkets, because you would be sent down there on your own ostensibly, and you wouldn't always be. I mean, I once ended up hanging out with Topher Grace across the bar one night at the Beverly Wilshire, just because that's where I was staying, and he was there for the Spider-Man 2 junket, so I got to talk to him, and then some other 70s show people showed up, and it's a whole 70s show theme today. But and then a whole bunch of other journalists came, and it became this giant table. But if you're it does happen. I've also hung out with someone who was not famous at a bar in Red Deer. So I was there for work, and I actually ended up having a drink at the Ramada in Red Deer, which is right next to like a mini casino and pull tab room, which I highly recommend.
Nice.
And I just was talking to some guy who, I think he was a pipe fitter, and we just had a really good conversation. So I'm all for the improv. And then I met my ex-fiance when I was having a drink by myself in a bar in Paris one time. So
wow.
I've had a few.
My brother
that's an epic meet
cute. It was a really good meet cute. Thank God we did not get married, is all I can say. We kept it at fiance. That was enough.
I was going to say my brother had a really good one. He went to a bar when he was in Victoria, and he thought this guy looks really familiar, and it was the guy who was from The Nanny, who played
the butler, or who played
the English guy, the dad of the kids.
Oh, Mr. Sheffield.
Yeah, yes, he met him, and he was in town making the Harry and Meghan movie.
Oh, wow.
And then the whole cast came in, and he right away was like, that just looks so much like Prince Harry. And that looks so much like Meghan. Anyway, he hung out with the entire, like they were having a big dinner at the end of the cast. And my brother was like, well, it was good to meet you. Have a good night. And he's like, no, come on. You're part of the group now. So my brother had this huge dinner bought for him, and he hung out with the cast of whatever trashy Hallmark movie about Harry and Meghan that came out.
That's fun.
I would have totally done a photo shoot pretending like just so I could have pictures with Harry and Meghan.
Yeah, no kidding, right? Yeah.
I would have just done like a whole like series of vignettes of like
and tagged the palace.
Yeah.
There we are in bed together. Oh my God, how did that happen?
But it's true what you said about not liking the characters. As I was watching, I was going, I don't like any of these people. But and you don't have to. That's another thing, I guess, being more mature when watching a film, is you don't have to like everybody in a film. In some ways, it's more fun not to like them. But I'd
never watch Succession if I had to like people.
You don't have to. But it's interesting because there's you don't have to hate them either. They live in this sort of realm between the two poles where you don't really like them, but you don't really hate. You could do without them almost, and that's because none of them are that mean. They're not terrible, awful people. They're not, criminals or war criminals. They're just they're locked away and they're not happy where they are. And I think we can all agree that we've all felt that way at some point, alienated and unhappy with where we happen to be in our lives, be it geographically or emotionally or whatever that might. I didn't mean to turn this into the Dr. Phil show, but I think although
all movies are therapy to a certain extent.
Exactly. And chances are whatever we say here is going to be a lot more useful to people than anything Dr. Phil has to say. But I would say that that's part of the attraction to this film is that it's okay to not be okay, to just be going through that situation. And it's like, what do they call them on TV? Bottle episodes, where you're running out of budget. So you do everything in one room of that episode of the TV show, and it all happens in that one space. And in a way, for them, Tokyo is this bottle episode. And it's not even really Tokyo. It could be a hotel anywhere. Honestly, it's just that the Tokyo part just adds an extra little bit of, difference and cultural difference.
Well, but language and time zone. So that's the big one.
But when they're in the hotel, they're cocooning inside their rooms, and there's I do love those shots of Scarlett Johansson and even him just sort of sitting in their rooms looking out at this, lit up city at night and just sort of looking out the window, or during the day. They do it all the time, and not really just looking and not going, just looking at it and being safe in their little space. And I think that's interesting too. And I also wondered how come her husband was able to sleep and she wasn't.
Because he was on his destiny. He knew what he was supposed to be doing. He was securing himself. We hate him.
Also, who wears underwear with a cardigan?
Yeah, I know. I thought about that too.
It's a really different temperature.
It would be very chilly. It'd be very chilly.
From that very first scene, in fact, when that's the title card, right? Is that pink, very, very sheer underwear. And at first I was like, are we sure a woman made this? Because this looks like the opening to a lot of French films in the 70s that were not made by and for women. She's like,
no, she really likes Scarlett Johansson. You can tell.
Yeah.
Like she really enjoys, making her look as beautiful as it is. It's outrageous. But then when you say when she's 17, it's not surprising then.
Right. But then when you think about
everybody at 17 is beautiful.
And isn't she supposed to be a stand-in for Sophia herself? So that says something too.
There you go. When we're casting our own selves, we're definitely going to go big, right?
Yeah. If I was given the opportunity to cast myself, a 30-year-old Brad Pitt would be probably that person that I would choose. I look nothing like Brad Pitt. But so dear listeners, nothing.
I'm picking a 30 to 35-year-old Julianne Moore to be me. So.
Oh, good choice.
Oh,
good choice.
Interesting. I would definitely go Sandra Oh.
Okay.
All the way.
It's a heck of a movie, this one.
Yeah.
So, some people call this a platonic romantic comedy. And I'm just wondering, at the end, when they kiss, what did you make of that at the end?
Yeah.
It
kind of doesn't feel platonic after they smooch at the end.
Do you mean the elevator one where they sort of weirdly, awkwardly
try to... No.
Or the
he
big
meets her on the street. He gets out of the car.
Does he kiss her? I thought he only gave her a big hug.
Yeah.
He gives her a big kiss.
Oh.
There's a big kiss.
I was probably looking
in the alley.
Phone. Yeah. Huh.
That's the final... Well, that's the final thing. He whispers something unknown the audience doesn't hear into her ear, and then they kiss. And then they part.
Huh.
And it's a romantic kiss.
It's a romantic kiss. I guess the way I've read it since I saw it, and I still continue to read it as more of this is the biggest thing that I can give. This is the biggest, when people meet, especially French people, they kiss on each cheek, right? There's something symbolic about kissing. And so I don't know if I felt like it was ultra romantic so much as just that was the biggest thing that I can do. That's what it felt like.
Yeah, I I kind of wish they hadn't done that.
No, but I agree with
I wish
you.
they had.
I'm really
wish they
glad
had
I
just
missed it
parted.
altogether and have my own Steven cut of the film where the kiss wasn't even there. Because now I'm a little annoyed. I'm going to have to go back and look at that and be like, I must have been looking, at my phone or, out the window at that point or something. But good Lord, because I remember there's that scene where they try to sort of vaguely kiss goodnight in the elevator. And that was actually almost desperately, sadly comical. Right. And then to have the big final, that kind of,
Yeah, because if that hadn't been there, I would have been not left with this final
Has she been asked why she did that? I've never looked that up. I don't know.
I didn't read anything about that. She's been asked a lot about what was said between the two characters, and apparently it wasn't scripted. It was just something like Bill Murray just said something, and no one knows what it was except for the two of them. Yeah, and so it's just left ambiguous. But I think I just it just leaves for me left the movie with this final oh, we're actually gonna sort of make it a little romantic, and I just didn't need to hear that at the end of the film or think about that.
The part that really actually threw me, I would say the biggest thing, and I thought it was it was good that she put it in, was him sleeping with that lounge singer. I thought that was just to show this is such a midlife crisis. It's not about Scarlett Johansson and him seeing her. It's about him. It's about himself. And when she was in the bathroom singing Midnight at the Oasis.
Also, the attention to detail, with her Australian accent in the lounge. Yeah. And it's just, we'll be right back. We're Sausalito. And I was like, what an incredibly stupid, great name for a bar band in Tokyo of Australians. That is brilliant.
Yeah.
Who would name their band Sausalito unless they've never been to Sausalito? It was.
Yeah. I would just like to, we can't sing on the podcast, but if I could just do some of her parsley, sage, rosemary.
her trills and her, it was, And as soon as, a lot of things in the film were telegraphed. I don't think anything was ever super surprised, except obviously the kiss that I missed. But I think in a way I appreciated the fact that it was almost by the numbers, if that makes sense. It wasn't trying to, give you twists and turns necessarily. It was just, nothing happened that you were shocked. I've never had a movie like this that's just so smooth that I know I'm going to be thinking about for a really long time. And when I told my friend that I was watching it last night, he's like, oh yeah, I saw it when it came out. I don't remember what it was about. And I'm like, I don't even know what it was about. And I just watched it. And it was but I meant that in a good way.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think so many people nowadays talk about a vibe. I think Sofia Coppola's was the early originator of a movie that's just a vibe.
Yes. I should have said that at the beginning. That's much better. That's what I get from when I watch it. And that's why I like it so much.
Yeah. So why don't we go around and ask, do you think this movie pops? Would you recommend it? Stephen, why don't you go first?
I think it pops. I just don't know who I would recommend it to. Not necessarily everybody, if that makes sense. But I think it does. And as I've sort of pointed out at this while talking about it, it's a really solid movie. I'm just not sure what happened in it. And that's not a bad thing. That's just the way it is.
Nothing happened. That's why you're confused.
Yeah.
Nothing happened.
That might be it.
Lisa?
Big pops. I'm obsessed with this movie. I'm serious. I bought a Lost in Translation t-shirt from Uniqlo with the Sofia Coppola CoPro. I'm in.
I'm going to have to say that this movie in 2023 does not pop for me. And I just think I admire Sofia Coppola's work. I think she's very talented. I think, she's a great writer, a great director, but I want her to do better. Mm-hmm. I don't want to see caricatures in these movies. I want to see characters who are not white being able to have inner thoughts and feelings. Yeah, I believe
Fair.
that she can and will do better. And I expect to, in the future, give her one of her movies a pop. But for me, I cannot recommend this one.
I would also
Gotcha.
like to add the caveat that I'd like to see her daughter being able to make more TikToks. Because
There we go.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's the true talent
I'm
in the
sure,
family.
like,
Do
we
not
did-
extinguish her talent too young. Let her fly free.
We did, yeah. We did give one Coppola's, film work.
Yeah, there you
a
go.
pop.
We did.
All around. So yeah, I will link to that. So if there's one person on the planet who hasn't seen it and is listening to this podcast, you'll be able to see it. Okay, so we like to end things on stuff we recommend. Stephen, do you want to go first?
Yes, I'm recommending a cookbook. Ta-da! It is called Where the River Narrows, and it is by J.C. Poirier, who is the chef and founder of St. Lawrence Restaurant here in Vancouver, one of the 8 restaurants in Vancouver that got a Michelin star recently.
Yes.
And not just a bib gourmand, he actually got the full-on star. Which is unusual because it is a tiny little restaurant, and usually Michelin stars, you have to have a certain level of service and size and all this. And it is a brilliant cookbook. It's French cooking mixed with French Canadian cooking mixed with West Coast. And it's also written in conjunction with Joao Valro-Kent, who's a local food writer, and the pictures are gorgeous. The food is amazing. And there is a quenelle and sauce nantua recipe that I'm going to be working on this weekend to perfect.
Really?
So,
I was going to say, are the recipes, do they look difficult?
Some seem difficult. Others are super rustic, throw everything in a bowl and throw it on the table. So it's a bit of both.
Okay.
And it's, I don't know if I said the name. It's called Where the River Narrows. And find booksellers everywhere.
Lovely.
Nice. Lisa?
Yeah, so I was at one of my free book exchanges around the neighborhood, and I found this little tiny book called The Red Notebook. It's a French book by Antoine Lorraine, and it is so sweet. It's only 150 pages. It's about a man who finds a purse that has been lost, and a woman has been mugged, and the purse is left, and he goes through this huge effort to try and find who she is based on the belongings inside her purse, which are very French and wonderful.
Fun.
And it was the most sweet book I've read. I read it in one afternoon, and I had the best time.
Nice. I wonder how easy that will be for people to find if you found it in a book. Like, when was it published?
Oh, only a couple years ago. I looked it up, and there's lots of references to it on Amazon, Goodreads. It's
okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to recommend some music. I am listening to Murray Lightburn from The Deers is releasing a new solo album this week called Once Upon a Time in Montreal. And I don't know if you've been following him since, like with The Deers.
Oh, yeah, I
have.
Yep.
Prog rock, but his solo career is more like kind of turning into more of a jazz crooner type of person. And this album is it's kind of a biopic about his father, whom he didn't know very well and who passed away, but he was a jazz musician. And so they had that in common. And Murray's kind of like singing all these songs from the point of view of his father and singing about, his life in Montreal. And I found it's a very beautiful, very moving album. And it's a totally new side of him if you're a fan of his work with The Deers. So definitely worth checking out. It's called Once Upon a Time in Montreal.
That's quite the theme we have going. A French book, a French and Quebecois cookbook, and an album about living in Montreal.
That's true.
Yeah, that is funny. Yeah, there we go.
We're feeling that this
we knew
week,
it.
I guess.
We knew it.
We're lost in translation as well. Only our language is French.
Yes.
So Lisa, do you want to do the wrap up?
I don't know all our coordinates.
Okay.
I know that I always say thank you to you, our co-host and our producer here, and thank you to Stephen Schelling, our guest star.
Thank you for having
always
me.
brings it just like any guest star on a TV show with and special guest. Thank you, Stephen.
I like a good cameo.
And yeah, so you've been listening to Pop This, and you can rate and review us on iTunes. 5 stars. Or you can follow us on any of the social medias, or send us an email at popthiscollective@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. And yes, thanks again, Stephen, for filling in for Andrea Warner this week. She will be back next week. And yeah, we always love having you. It's been a pleasure.
Wonderful.
I love it
Thank you
here.
so much.
Thanks, Stephen.
All right. Bye.